Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our first impressions of the new albums from Dream Theater, Jinjer, and Obscura. So 3 bands we've covered on the channel already. 2 of them are on the Toe Tags list, that being Jinjer and Obscura. But we're gonna start with Dream Theater. Parasomnia. We've reviewed them on the channel before. We've reacted to a bunch of their videos, including 3 singles from this album. A couple of which I thought were fine. One of them I wasn't such a big fan of, which was A Broken Man. I didn't really like that one too much. And I'm just gonna say, I still don't like it. I feel like the song's a bit of a slog. I felt like it kept trying to be something and it never really found its identity. That's kind of an issue I've had with this band a lot, but I know that's kind of the nature of the game, and it's a problem I've always had with progressive music and progressive bands of this type. So that song kind of falls into the category of not my cup of tea. There's a couple other songs that do that as well on this album, but with that said, Night Terror, which was the first single we reacted to, I think is great. I really like Night Terror. I think it's a good song. It's got nice driving riffs. Overall, it's a great song. My issue with it is the vocals. And my issue's always been the vocals with certain Dream Theater songs. They're not horrible, but I feel like it takes a little bit to kind of adjust to it, right? It's almost like a lot of people use Dave Mustaine as like a bad vocalist in metal, right? But some people love him. I'm one of those people. I love Dave Mustaine's vocals, but you had to get used to it.
It's an acquired taste.
That's right. The other single we reacted to was Midnight Messiah. This is an odd one for me because I also really like this song, but the vocals don't bother me here, and I don't really know why. I feel like whatever he's doing vocally or whatever they're doing musically fits together a lot better. And I like that, and for that reason, that was a real highlight for me. When the album starts off, In the Arms of Morpheus, track 1, it's got about 2 minutes of music before, or it's got about 2 minutes of something before the music actually kicks in. That bothers me a bit. Cut that off, make that an intro track, an interlude track, something skippable, so you don't have to sit through that every time. It is what it is. I did like how it had this kind of, it sounded almost like low brass, like baritone sounding thing going on, but it wasn't that, but it had that kind of like sound to it. I thought that was interesting as well. There's some cool stuff on this album. I was actually reminded of King Diamond a few times, which I think is an odd thing because I never thought I would compare King Diamond to Dream Theater or vice versa. But there's a couple things, like the song Dead Asleep. I felt like this song sounds like it was written by King Diamond, both musically and thematically, in certain ways lyrically. It had this whole like, oh, I just killed my wife, but I was sleepwalking, so I'm innocent. Like, that's something I feel like King Diamond would definitely write about.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially because like the whole album has kind of like an eerie, haunted vibe. That's usually the direction King Diamond goes with his music. So, you know, they kind of invoked a lot of that energy with it. Exactly.
That's precisely it. And I'll just touch on the album cover a little bit because it's got a picture of like a little girl or a ghost or something in like a haunted house.
Yeah.
I totally got Alice in Hell vibes from that.
Yeah.
Based on that cover. So it's touching on these other things that I'm familiar with that kind of, you know, gave me a sense of home in a way with my listening ears. Skipping forward to the end of the album, the Shadow Man Incident. This is a 19-minute, 32-second long track. So it's a long one, especially for people like me that aren't particularly into this style of music. It has some really cool parts in it. There's parts where the band's just vibing, just grooving on these like Latin style grooves or these like jazzy kind of
solo,
sections.
that Latin solo, whatever, the piano. Fucking crazy.
There's stuff in there that's just like, it sounds really, really good. Like just really tasteful. But my problem is it's padded by all this extra stuff that I just don't care about. And for me, it's like, this is the kind of thing, like if I put it on the background, that's fine. I could be doing whatever and then not paying too much attention to it. And then the cool part will happen. I'll go, oh yeah, this is awesome. But I would have a hard time listening to this with any type of focus and enjoying the whole thing through and through. At the end of the song, there's about a minute of silence, and then all of a sudden it says, wake up, and there's like an alarm bell or whatever, right? I thought that was a little cringy. I might be a little bit nitpicky on that, but I almost would have preferred if it was just silence and nothing else. But at first I was like, why is there silence? This song is already 20 minutes, or almost 20 minutes. So that kind of confused me a little bit. But overall, I mean, I would have to listen to the last couple records to kind of compare and see where this falls with those ones. And I'm not as much of a Dream Theater fan as much as TV Fish by far. But I'm not sure if I like this better or worse than the last one. I'm not exactly sure how I stand on that. But overall, it was a decent listen. Just it has too much other stuff that I just don't relate to.
Yeah, it's that's kind of a difficult comparison to make, especially considering that, kind of the overall style of the album is very different from the last few. Because, the last record they released is not one that we reviewed, but the one before that we did, and that was Distance Over Time.
Yeah.
Which I liked quite a bit, and you actually decently liked it as well.
I don't remember what my score was, though.
It was like a 6 or a 7. Like, it was generally favorable. And this record, I mean, obviously, I was beyond excited for. They're one of my favorite bands. Mike Portnoy said after, I think after he rejoined, and I think after they dropped Night Terror, I guess not long before that, he was saying that this album musically picks up where Black Clouds and Several Linings left off, which was the last release that he was on with the band in 2009. And now that the album's out and that I've listened to it, I would say that I agree. And I think that alone is really, really impressive to consider that he left the band, in 2010. 15 years later, he comes back and they picked up where they left off like it was nothing. That's impressive. To be able to be gone for that long, come back and just hit resume on what they were doing is not easy to do. To be able to basically kind of just, like, that chemistry is just always there.
Just because of how much people evolve too, like, for them to just fit right back in the same shoe like that. Yeah, that's impressive.
And then on top of that, especially because the band had still been making music with a different drummer, the album sounded different. There was like 5 albums worth of content, 15 years worth of stuff.
Yeah.
To be able to go back there is like, wow. Like,
and this is their 16th album too, so they've done a lot.
Been going for a while.
Yeah.
So I remember I mentioned, I want to say I may have mentioned it during our Night Terror reaction, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that's reminding me of the older stuff. And I remember there was a point we were hanging out, and I showed you, like, look, this part of these songs sounds just like that.
Yep.
And as I was listening, and I was a little bit scared because I kind of thought, like, are they kind of running out of ideas and this is just like, oh, we're just kind of rehashing the old stuff?
Yeah.
But as I listened to this album, I realized, no, I think all of this is intentional. I think all of the callbacks, all of the references, all of the similarities are meant to be that way.
Yeah.
And I really realized it during A Broken Man, which I kind of feel similar to you. It's still fine. I don't think it's a bad song. It just didn't really stand out like the rest of the tracks may have for me. But something I noticed in the lyrics, and it's funny because I actually pointed this out in our reaction, but didn't realize how much of it was there. There are multiple direct like references and quotes from lyrics from other songs. And I mentioned it with Strange Deja Vu in the reaction, but like there's more than just that. Constant Motion is there. I think This Dying Soul is in there. I think Home is in there. That might have been, Home is another one. So I'm like, okay, that to me confirmed that all the old references are meant to be that way.
Yeah,
and
they're callbacks.
They're all these callbacks. Yeah. I'm like, oh. So then musically they do it as well. Like after the kind of intro section of Shadow Man Incident, you got 4 on the floor. And when I'm hearing that in my head, I'm like, like Dance of Eternity. And then they do something really similar to that. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I didn't expect them to actually reference that, which was very funny. But once again, I'm thinking to myself, this is probably all intentional. I feel like the album itself isn't like a full concept story, but it's more so all this stuff about nightmares and sleep disorders and dreaming and all this stuff, as if like you've been asleep for 15 years, wake up, what the hell just happened? Yeah. You know what I mean? At the end of the album, it's like, wake up. Like,
yeah, in that context, it's a little less cringy.
Yeah, like I feel like it's not, and the Shadow Man Incident is more so kind of like a sleep paralysis demon kind of thing, which, okay, that's what that is. Which, I mean, I thought that song was fantastic. I thought, I'll be honest, I loved it. I loved the album. I thought it was so good. It felt like, I was really into the direction the band was going with Systematic Chaos and Black Clouds. It's really cool to see that sound continue. The references to older stuff, now in my mind being intentional, I think are really cool and creative. And there's a lot of moments where I'm listening, I'm like, oh, this is sick. And that's what I really love from Dream Theater. When I'm putting the song on, they do a thing, I'm like, what the fuck was that? That was, oh my God, this groove, did you hear that? Like, it's like a really crazy roller coaster ride. That's kind of what the experience when it's like this band at their best, that kind of thing is. Wouldn't say it's their best album ever, but it's a strong one. I kind of still feel similar about the singles, all the singles. The 2 I enjoyed, I still really enjoyed Broken Man. And I may have misspoke. I think I said A Broken Man lyrics are the ones I pointed out. It was actually Midnight Messiah that had the lyric references.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you did misspeak, but Good correction.
But yeah, I guess if there's one other thing I want to bring up, because, you know, there's a lot about this album I enjoyed, but Bend the Clock is the ballad of the album. And when I first started hearing it, I'm like, okay, this is a Dream Theater ballad, but I'm like, 7:24? Like, that's pretty long. Like, that's bold for a Dream Theater ballad. However, once I finished the song, it made sense, because at about like the 5-ish minute mark, there's just like basically a 2-minute long guitar solo to end the song, and it just goes and goes and goes, and they fade out, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah. And that was incredible. Like, I'm thinking, like, overall, like, it's a fine Dream Theater ballad, but when it gets to that part, oh my God, one of the best solos. Just beautiful. And I love when songs do that. You just got the guitar solo and they just ride it out and fade it out. Love when bands do that.
All right, so let's move on to the next album.
All right, what's next?
Let's talk about Duel by Jinjer.
Duel.
Well, it's got an accent, so it's Duel.
What'd you think of Duel?
You go first. What did you think of Duel?
What did I think of Duel? I kind of like how Tantrum wastes zero time doing anything.
It's just into the business right away.
And it's funny because it's like a 180 from In the Arms of Morpheus, which has like more buildup than it should have to kind of get started. This is just like the instant you press play, bam, there we go.
Yeah.
And I liked that. And you know what it reminded me of? Telescope by Tala, which does have a little intro, but as soon as that's done, it's just bang. You know what I mean? And I thought that was pretty cool. Now, I think, you know, this song kind of sets the tone based on what I recalled from the singles, that it's like a really big back and forth between the really harsh, hard stuff and the nice melodic stuff that this band's known for.
Yeah.
Now, you know, and we mentioned it probably multiple times throughout all the reactions that we did for singles leading up to this album. Tatiana killed it. She's already one of the best singers in the game, and she stepped up. How do you do that? If you're already like doing amazing performances and it can get better.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is just how intricate her vocal melodies are. I think they're so well crafted on this record. It's just like what's already great got better. And that's amazing. But I found that like they went back and forth a lot with a lot of the harsh and soft stuff and kind of mix it and stuff. Some songs kind of stood out, but others kind of felt like Jinjer just doing Jinjer stuff. And I know, if I recall correctly, that was kind of one of the main issues that I and we kind of had with Wallflowers, which was their last record, which just kind of felt like same old, same old.
Yeah.
I feel like this is definitely a step up from that. But it does feel like some songs did stuff that didn't really surprise me. It's like, yeah, this is standard Jinjer. But, you know, a song like Tumbleweed I thought was pretty cool. It was straightforward, but melodic. Tatiana sounded great. And it was kind of like an inverse of Rogue, which is a lot harder, bouncy, more vicious. So it was cool that they kind of had that 180 of the sounds. And I feel like the title track, which was the last reaction we did, the last single they released leading up to it, it sums up the album really well. I feel like everything this album has to offer is summed up, kind of wrapped up with a nice bow at the end with that title track. You know, like if you were to ask me, hey, what's this album about? What's the vibe? Listen to the title track and you'll know basically like that's kind of all the kind of stuff this album has to offer summed up. And it's good to kind of sum up everything at the ending too.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And just to kind of emphasize Tatiana's vocals, for me, her harsh vocals are, I find her harsh vocals pretty much fine, but her cleans are so good. They're so good. And this is where I think the improvement was. Not that it even needed it.
Exactly.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
She didn't even need it, but you take songs like Green Serpent, which was a single we reacted to. It was one of my favorite songs of 2024. Definitely a super highlight of the year. And just her vocal control, the way she's given a little bit of vibrato in these parts and she's hitting these notes that are so pure and beautiful. It's just really, really pleasant to listen to. Kafka, which was another single, I don't know if we reacted to it or not.
I believe we did.
There was a lot of singles from this record.
There were
I don't think we hit them all, but maybe we did. I don't know. But
if we didn't, it was only like one or two that we missed.
Her cleans are where she shines because that's where her uniqueness is. I feel like her harshes are they just blend in with everybody else's harshes. They're good, they're solid, they're top tier, but the cleans are where her uniqueness is, and that's what draws me to her as a vocalist. So yeah, there's a few songs on here that really highlight that, and she's definitely stepped it up, and just primo stuff. With that said, the band sounds great as normal. My issue is they just keep doing the same things that they do all the time. So nothing really here feels new or fresh. This all feels like just the same old type of Jinjer.
It's good.
It's
but
good. It's good. Yeah, you can still get behind it and enjoy it.
We've heard a lot of it on the last record and the album before.
Exactly, and that's where I feel like the band's kind of maybe stagnated a bit. And I was hoping for something that really stood out this time. And I don't feel like I found it, except there's a few things. You mentioned Tumbleweed. I do think that's a song that stands out because they kind of like bring it back a little bit. They decrease the tempo. They kind of lay back a little bit with that one. And that's good. And then you take a song like Fast Draw, they do the opposite. Yeah. You get a punk beat and you get some like crossover punk type of vibes. And it's just circle pit music. No cleans, just great energy, balls to the walls, awesome stuff. Speaking of Duel, the title track, what an awesome drum intro this song has.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It reminded me of like Joey Jordison's Playing Off Volume 3. Like if you listen to songs like Welcome or The Nameless or something like that, like it kind of had that vibe for me listening to it. But yeah, overall, I thought the album was good. There's a few songs that kind of just came and went. Hedonist, Rogue, Dark Bile, A Tongue So Sly. These songs are good songs, but they're like, I felt like they just came and went. Right? We say that about a lot of songs on different albums. It's kind of like a thing that happens.
I mean, especially if you're following a band in detail for so long. We've reviewed Jinjer multiple times. They are on the Two Toe Tags list. We've reacted to them a million times.
Yeah, they're one of our most covered bands on the channel.
Exactly. And I feel like Jinjer is at a point where they have, like, in some aspects maxed out on a lot of what they're doing right now. And I think it would be really cool to see this band start really doing like some hard experiments.
Yes.
Like really jump out of their comfort zone and start doing a lot of different stuff, because I feel like they integrate even more experimental stuff with elements of the stuff they're already got at their foundation.
Yeah.
They can make something ridiculously cool. And I think it would really blow up that way, because everyone would be like, whoa, what's Jinjer doing?
I would love to see it. And you know what? If they can do that without losing their personality, then they have a recipe for massive success, I think.
Exactly. But regardless, like I'd say we both believe this is still a good album regardless.
Still a good album regardless. Moving on, A Sonication by Obscura. Okay. This is our second time reviewing Obscura on the album. A Valediction we reviewed a couple years ago, and it got on the Two Toe Tags list, which is pretty cool. So, I listened to the album today, and I was like, you know what? I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. Because I listened to A Valediction recently, just to kind of refresh my memory, and I went, holy crap, this is really good. This is a solid album. I also listened to the previous album to that, Diluvium, and went, holy shit, this is really good. Holy crap. I listened to a couple of their other older albums, I was like, holy fuck, do these guys ever miss? Like, these guys are just hitting it over and over and over again. So I was really hyped going into this.
Yeah.
And when I listened to it, I felt underwhelmed. I felt like they just didn't have the passion. And I've used this kind of, I don't know if you call it an excuse, but I get this sense sometimes, this feeling, and I'm probably wrong, but this is just how I feel. I feel like they rushed this album. It feels like it was one of those situations where the record company was like, hey, you guys are due for an album, you better put something out, you gotta get it out by this date, make it happen. And then the band's like, all right, let's just go record whatever, put it out, please the record company and do whatever. It just doesn't feel like there was any creativity here. It doesn't feel like they sat down together and really crunched and tried to write something special. It felt like they just wrote it to write it, and that's it. Could be completely wrong. Maybe this band has tons of passion in this. I'm just off my marker. That's entirely possible, but I didn't feel it. Okay? Yeah. So, listening to the album, it starts off with Silver Linings. I think this is a fine song. I think we reacted to this one. This is
the one that we reacted to. There was another single that we didn't check out, and that was the song right after that, but this Silver Linings is the one that we checked out.
Yeah, so I think it's a fine song. It reminds me of Arch Enemy for some reason. I don't know why. That's not a bad thing either. I think Arch Enemy is a good band too. But I'm looking for something more. When Even Fall came on, which is song 2, I was totally taken out already of the album, because this song felt kind of slow and it felt kind of like soft. And I felt like this should be track 4 or 5. You shouldn't have a song that slow and that soft. Not that it's slow and soft. I don't want to. Yeah, it's the slower and softer, right? You got to put some relative context here. But it just felt like it was too early for a song like that, and it kind of really just threw me off right early on in the album. And I don't know if I recovered from that. The prolonging, you got a higher tempo in that song. It kind of picked up the energy. It's very short at just over 2 minutes. But it was like, you had this chance to really pack a punch in 2 minutes, and I feel like they kind of failed it a little bit.
It didn't even feel like it to me, it didn't really feel like a 2-minute song. I'm like, wait, that's it?
Yeah.
It's overall. It didn't really feel like that short.
Exactly. And the rest of the songs, I felt like, they kind of were good, but nothing really stands out great. And the stance I'm left with right now is, I must have missed something. Mm-hmm. There must be something there. I must have been in a mood or maybe not focusing properly or something, because I don't know how they can put out all these great albums and then just dip like this. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I still had a good time listening to it. I still think it's strong. It's just my expectations were up here, and it kind of landed around here somewhere. That might be my fault. Maybe that was unfair to go in like that. But either way, I'm left a little bit on this one.
It's a difficult game to play because you have expectations. It's a band you really like. They make so much stuff you love, so your expectations are going to be high regardless. And if they don't meet that or exceed that, then you're going to feel disappointed even if you like it.
It's tough.
So it's tough because when they do exceed those expectations, then you're blown away, right?
Yeah.
So it's a hard game to play. I thought, I recall like feeling that Silver Linings was solid when we reacted to it. I still think it's cool. Very funny you mentioned Arch Enemy as like what it reminded you of. For me, it was reminding me of Children of Bodom.
Probably the keyboards.
I was about to say the keyboards in the chorus. I'm thinking, oh, this is such a Bodom thing to do. You know what I mean? And I was starting to think some more songs and aspects of stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is reminding me of Children of Bodom, which is a good thing to be reminded of.
Yeah.
Especially considering that this band is a lot more overall technical in their approach to the music. I think they do a lot more, in some aspects, progressive stuff. In some aspects, it's just like a lot less straightforward and more like, oh, look at this kind of weird stuff they're doing. But the prolonging, like I said, felt weird that it was only 2 minutes because I didn't feel like that, but loved the drum fill that opened up that song, and I thought the low growls in that one were cool. And that was really kind of showing me that this singer has a pretty good variety of harsh vocals. I was finding cool, like, there's a consistent kind of like upper mid scream that this singer does, but then starts bringing in the low ones, like, oh wow, he's got this too.
Yeah.
Thought that was pretty cool. Regarding Even Fall, to me, it kind of felt like an interesting tone shift, because you've got the first song, which is like harsher, and then it's like, whoa, now we're here, right? And I think it's kind of like a gamble. Either it's a cool like shift, like, whoa, where are we now? Or it just feels like you get too much of a whiplash effect. And I guess that's kind of how it happened for you.
That's what happened to me, yeah.
So it's kind of a gamble to organize your album that way. But one thing I really liked in this record, which, we don't really comment on much, is the bass tone. I thought the bass sounded really nice. I liked that it kind of got featured in the sense of you could more clearly hear it. Because I think a lot of metal bands, the bass is there and relevant, and if it was gone, you'd notice. But at the same time, it's harder to pick out because the guitars are so distorted and lower in lower tunings.
Yeah.
So it was cool to hear that more. And Beyond the Seventh Sun is a really cool, fun instrumental with cool riffs, and has a bass solo in it too. And I'm like, oh, nice. They give him some. So I thought that was pretty cool. So overall, it didn't really, blow me away, but it felt solid. I felt that there were cool and creative stuff in the album. It's not like it's a short album. It's like 38, 39-ish.
39 minutes.
39 minutes, so it's not
8
short.
tracks.
Yeah, it's not like short by any means, but something in me after listening said like, this could use 1 or 2 more tracks.
Yeah,
weird. I don't know.
Use another track or two. Yeah, bring it up to 45-ish minutes or so. Yeah, that would have been fine.
I feel like with the nature of some of the tracks on this record, I feel like that would be a good move.
So anyways, after listening to all 3 albums and discussing which one we want to review, it was a tough choice.
It was.
And it might be a bit of a surprise, but we decided to do a Sonication by Obscura this week. We're going to give it a chance. We think there might be something special there. And, we've reviewed Jinjer on the channel many times. Dream Theater is what it is. But, we're going to give it a chance, man. Obscura is going to get the spin-in for the week, and we will be back in a week to give you guys our full and final review of this album. So for now, leave your thoughts down below and let us know what you guys thought of these 3 new releases, and subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm By Yourself.
I'm TV Fish.
I'll see you guys in the next one.